Welcome into the NFL Opening Line Report, Super Bowl day after edition. We'll get you ready for next season, the offseason, as well as recapping the Super Bowl. I am Drew Martin, joined as always by Teddy Covers himself. Teddy, happy Monday morning to you, man. How was the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I had Kansas City. I had Kansas City large. So at least there wasn't a sweat, in many ways you'd rather lose. In a game like this, you want to have right sides. Philly was the right side. I had the wrong side. It is what it is. And in a sense, from a psychological perspective, look, it was over early. It was over before halftime. KC wasn't pulling a Tom Brady. Mahomes wasn't pulling a Brady in that game because the domination at the line of scrimmage was just too strong. So at least it was over early for that. The props were looking great. I had a good day in the props until Kenny Pickett threw that pass right at the end of the game. That one hurt me. I had under 2.5 Eagles. Under 2.5 players to throw a pass at them. And there was no scenario in which you're going to get three unless it's such a blowout and there's a 3rd and long and they let the backup QB chill. And, of course, with an incomplete pass. Nonetheless, more than 2.5 players threw a pass attempt. So that one kind of threw a wrench as the props were. The second half, the props were just cash after cash after. It was looking really good with the props. But that one right at the end, caught me with a little one more smack on a day that was kind of smacked. And, of course, I leaned under in that ball game. And under sure felt like the right side until everything went nuts after halftime. And Xavier Worthy catching a couple of big TDs. But so overall, side lost. Props, I haven't fully gone through them, but pretty close to break even on the props. It wasn't a real good day. It wasn't a real bad day. Total, obviously, the opinion was wrong in that one as well. So I leaned under in the game, ended up going over the total. So not one of my favorite Super Bowls, Drew. Nonetheless, it's over. And now we got a whole new season to talk about and look about. And but, of course, it's not over. I mean, we should do one of the things I do every Monday during football season, you re-handicap your games. I call it a postmortem. And this is one where, what I get wrong, I got the trenches completely wrong in the contest. I didn't see Philly dominating Kansas City up front the way that they did. But the Eagles' defensive front was the story of the game. I know Jalen Hurts wins the MVP. That's great. The story of the game was Philly's front four and Vic Fangio's defense. We'll give them credit. They deserve it.
They absolutely do, Teddy. And it's something you don't have to be a football aficionado to understand that dynamic of if your offensive front is struggling against the opposing defensive front. It goes all the way up to the Super Bowl, high school, college football, the NFL, to the largest game of them all. If you're struggling in that aspect, it is going to be tough for your team to win. And we normally don't see it to that extent in the Super Bowl in particular, with the Chiefs struggling right there. And it was just like on full display, Teddy, of this is going to be a long game for the Kansas City Chiefs, man. And I was with you. I gave out a free play on the Kansas City Chiefs as well. Did not go large. I went bigger with my punting props from last week. Hopefully you guys tailed. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there, Teddy. I thought it was on full display early, man. And not sure if you have anything on that. Just if you get that type of handicap wrong, like maybe in-game live jumping off of it, because I guess you could have saved some money.
So that's one of the things that disappoints me is that I'm one of the things that I look for. I'm a in the trenches handicapper, and I missed, I guess, the weakness of KC's front. I missed that. I didn't see it happening. And I didn't see Philadelphia control. I mean, the KC got a first down on the very first play, on their first play of the game. And that was their only first down in the first half. All right, they went the next, and during that span, 2 turnovers, both of which led to touchdowns. One was a pick six, and one was a turnover deep in their own territory. But after that first, if you'd have said, what's KC going to have, more first downs or the turnovers at halftime? First downs is 100-1 favorite there, and it wasn't. And that's me missing the handicap. There's no sugarcoating it. And it's especially disappointing because that's the way I handicap. I always All right, let's look at the trenches. Who's going to win the battle in the trenches? It's one of the things I hype on this show every week is talking about the dominations up front and what teams are capable of dominating up front. And I knew that Philly was extremely strong. I thought KC would be able to handle them. They couldn't. That was then, and it was again. It felt over after the pick six. At 17-0, it felt over. After the second interception that led to the Eagles' touchdown before halftime, it was over. I mean, there was no comeback coming. The second half of this game was all garbage time, and some of those garbage time numbers ended up being lousy for the books, who did okay on the Super Bowl. The reports I've read, the books did fine. It wasn't a monster, but ended up being pretty good in a lot of ways for them. But Mahomes going over late, the game going over, neither of those were necessarily. The game, there was a real sharp score divide. There was two-way action on the side in that game. There was a lot of public support for KC. There was a lot of wise guy support for Philadelphia, but it wasn't a game that every pro was on Philly and every Joe was on Kansas City. There was legit two-way action there. Where the sharp score divide was for the total. The pros were all betting the under. The Joes were all betting the over. The Joes end up cashing, even though the total moved down. Although that first half makes a big difference when and where you bet it. First half total, was it 24.5? Was it 24? Was it 23.5? At close, it was 23.5. And of course, it landed right on 24. That's one of those bets. First half total, you're supposed to win regardless of which side you had. That's betting skills more than handicapping skills.
Well said there, Teddy. And I guess we want to get into the box score, the stats, dig in deep to how the game went before projecting out next year. So where did you want to start with this and kind of recap?
I just went through and graded a bunch of props. I thought I'd be a chance to talk about it. Of course, opening coin toss was tails and deferred, as always. We saw that end of the 15-0. By the way, whatever you want to know, heads or tails. The team that scored last to win the game, which I believe was 15-0 or 10-0, finally ended last night with Kansas City having, they were blown out and then they got the late TD with Worthy. So the team to score last did not win the game, which has been a real moneymaker in recent years. National anthem stayed just under. Last one I saw was 2 minutes and half a second, and it got clocked at 1:59. So if you had tails and national anthem under, you did very, very well before the game even started. Of course, did you have will either team score 3 straight times? Yes. Will either team score 4 straight times? Yes. Will either team score 6 straight times, which I didn't see? That's how the game started, with Philly scoring the first 6 times. The first 6 scores of the game were for Philadelphia. And again, will either team scored 4 straight times? The yes was plus 300. I didn't see anything higher than that. But that's a nice plus price prop for those who had it. Both teams punted before they scored. Each team opening drive ended in a punt, not a score. Nobody scored in the first 3.5 minutes, first 4.5 minutes, first 5.5 minutes, first 6.5 minutes, first 7.5 minutes of the first quarter. They got there, what was it, 7 and change and with the first score with the Hurts tush push from the 1 yard line, which made shortest touchdown of the game under 1.5 yards. Will either team score in the final 2 minutes of the first half? Yes. Thanks to the Mahomes second interception. Will either team score in the final 3.5 minutes of the game? Yes. With the late Worthy score. Will both teams have a lead in the first half? No. Will there be a lead change in the fourth quarter? No. Will the game be tied after 0-0? No. Will there be a missed extra point? No. Will both teams make 33-yard or longer field goals? No. Total first half field goals under 1.5. Total field goals made by both teams. Well, Elliott made 4, and that's all you needed. Over 3.5 cash there, and all the Elliott props cash there. The total field goal props cashed, and the longest field goal there. So the longest field of the game, 48.5. Elliott kicked a pair of 48-yarders and then a 50-yarder as well. So the over cashes in that one. Shortest made field goal of the game, over under 27.5 yards. That cashes. Distance of the first made field goal of the game was 48, over 36.5. Last made field goal of the game, also 36.5, also over. Total combined yardage of all field goals, over. Total touchdown. So many of these props, Drew, so many of them. Half decided by a half. There was one for my clients and I that I cashed for my clients, and I'm like, this is supposed to be 8. It's 7.5 with juice. We're going to play 8. That was total number of Chiefs to catch a pass. I'm like, the right number is 8, and it's 7.5 even with juice. It's the right number, and 8 Chiefs ended up catching a pass. Total touchdowns by both teams, 5.5. Where does it finish? 6 with that worthy catch at the end. First half touchdowns by both teams, 2.5. What it land? 3. Second half touchdowns, 2.5. What it land? 3. Longest touchdown of the game goes over 40.5 yards. Shortest touchdown of the game goes under 1.5 yards. Just the first touchdown of the game was under. Jalen Hurts scored that first TD of the game. He also won MVP, obviously. Total yardage of all touchdowns in the game went over. There were enough big plays in that one. Some of the popular square props. There was no overtime. There was no safety. The fourth downs, both teams 0 for 1 on fourth downs. You got plus price on the no for will they convert a fourth down for both KC and Philly, and a nice plus price. No fourth downs for the game if you were able to find that one and get involved. Largest lead of the game by either team was over 14.5. Largest lead in the first half by either team over 9.5 in that one. I'm going to keep going. This is kind of fun. Team that scores first wins the game. Yes, that was juicy. Will both teams complete their first pass attempt? Yes, that happened. And then Mahomes did nothing for the rest of the half. Total interceptions by both teams, over 1.5. Mahomes throws 2. Total fumbles lost by both teams, under 1.5. That was juiced heavily to the under. Total quarterback sacks by both teams, over 4.5. Well, Mahomes took 6. So that's all you needed to know there. Will there be a defensive or special teams touchdown? Yes, that cashes again. That's been a big moneymaker at a plus price in the last decade and a half in Super Bowls. 2-point conversion attempt? Yes. 2-point conversion successful? Yes. Both of those were plus prices. Will both teams attempt 2-point conversion? That one ends up with no. First turnover of the game was an interception. That was chalk. Last score of the game was touchdown. That was chalk. Will at least one quarter be scoreless? No. The no, heavy chalk in that one. Total number of different players to have a passing attempt, 2.5. Well, Pickett. I'm mad at Pickett. I never disliked Pickett before, and he threw that pass, and I disliked it very much. Total number of different players to have a rushing attempt, 7.5. Lands 7. The over there was minus 160. Total number of different players to have a pass reception. KC had 8. Philly had 5. That's 13. What was the number? 13.5. I'm telling you, spot on. Total punts by both teams, over under 6.5. They finished with 8. I thought there would be punts in this ballgame and less fourth down conversions. That part of my handicap was right. Will there be an octopus? No, there wasn't an octopus. Will there be a scorigami? No, there wasn't a scorigami. Total net yards by both teams, over under 715.5. That stays under. Mahomes, this one hurt the books for sure. All right. The worthy second touchdown and worthy to catch a touchdown, worthy 2 touchdowns. That was a 10-1 long shot. Mahomes' gross passing yards was 250.5. With that last touchdown, he got to 257 on the 50-yard bomb. That wasn't good for the house. Will Mahomes have 300 or more passing yards? No was chalk, no cashes. First quarter passing yards, Mahomes cashes. Total incompletions by Mahomes. He would finish 21 of 32 in the ball game for 257. That's 11 incompletions. What was the total for incompletions? 11.5. I'm telling you, these lines were tight. I'm just looking at some of these that stood out to me. I'm not going to go on forever. I'm just going to do like a handful more. Will Mahomes throw 2 or more touchdown passes in any quarter? The yes cashes, 3-1 dog there with the fourth quarter. None of the rushing prop. I mean, KC player prop wise, this is what cashed, right? Mahomes over cashed in terms of yards. He didn't cash completions over. He didn't cash attempts over. Touchdowns over cashed for Mahomes. Worthy over receptions and yards cashed for Kansas City. Basically every other player for just about everything under. Kareem Hunt did nothing. Isaiah Pacheco did nothing. Travis Kelce, 39 passing yards. Hopkins, 18. Schuster, 16. Hollywood Brown, 15. There was nothing going in terms of KC overs, with the exception of Worthy and the Mahomes passing yards. For Philly, there was a lot more overs, obviously. But even Philly didn't go crazy with the overs. with a lot of the stuff. Jalen Hurts gets over his passing yardage total, but one that I loved, Ariza with the touchback. That was a nice plus. He had 2 touchbacks in the game, and my handicap there was KC's going to punt. It's not going to be a 4th down game. I should have put it with a no 4th down conversion. I didn't put that out because that would have been a nice plus price cash for the clients too. It's one I talked about a lot but didn't use. Ariza punts over, longest punt over, touchback, and nice plus price there. But for Philly, Devonta Smith goes over receiving yards. Hurts the leading rusher in the ball game for what it's worth. Barkley stays under. Barkley doesn't score a touchdown. Jahan Dotson was one I talked about, and he caught that early and actually had 2 catches in the game. I was wrong in that handicap. That being said, when he got knocked down at the 1, it set up the shortest touchdown of the game, under 1.5 yards. But Dotson was a factor after being a non-factor for the previous 2 games. Dallas Goedert was a very popular guy. Kansas City's getting lit up by tight ends. Goddard, basically a non-factor. He stays under with just about everything. Kenneth Gainwell. Gainwell gets his chance at the end of the game because it's garbage time. Over under 9.5 rushing yards. He gets to 10, though his longest rush under 5.5 yards. Rushing attempts goes over. Receiving yards by A.J. Brown stays under. Longest reception by A.J. Brown stays under. Total reception by A.J. Brown stays under. Barkley doesn't score a touchdown. Barkley rushing attempts did go over. His longest rush stayed way under, but his longest rush was 10 yards. That was 25.5. Will Brown score a touchdown? Yes. I can go on and on and on. I'm almost done, I promise. Devontae Smith, the 1 Eagle receiver to go over. Goddard stays under with receiving yards. Goddard stays under with catches. Longest reception by Goddard, 19.5 yards. What did he get? You know what he got. The 20-yarder. By the hook. So there you have it. That's just a little recap of some of the props from yesterday, some of the ones that stood out to me. If you have other prop questions, please drop them in the comments below. Both Drew and I will be in there today. And, of course, we'll answer what we can on the show before we're through. But, yeah, I'm going to breathe out now. Exhale. Lots of props to talk about. And, of course, that's what Super Bowl Sunday is. Yeah, it's the game. Yeah, it's the side. Yeah, it's a total. It's a prop party. And yesterday, for over bettors, despite the fact that KC scored 22 points and the game flew over the total, a lot of these props stayed under the number.
They absolutely did, Teddy. And I'll tell you this, if you would have said Saquon Barkley would be held to 2.3 average yards per rush, and they would still win the game like this, I wouldn't have guessed that. The Kansas City Chiefs defense, I thought played pretty well, even though the Philadelphia Eagles have 40 points to show for it. I wouldn't put too much of it on the Kansas City Chiefs defense. It was more on the offense, particularly early, putting themselves in the hole, not being able to get first downs. You just touched on it. The first play of the game was a first down. Then they go the whole first half without it. So their defense is on the field pretty much the whole time. That just put them behind it. And it gets to, when you were talking about, I was with you on how many, I guess, players would have a pass attempt of under 2.5. We didn't factor in the blowout factor of one of these backups actually getting in the game. That's a tough one because we haven't had a blowout in the Super Bowl. I guess you could go to 2021. What was that, 31-9? When the Chiefs were in that against the Tampa Bay Bucks, but that game even played closer. You have to go almost back to 2014 to have a Super Bowl where it was over early in the game, Teddy. So we just haven't had Super Bowls like this where we're dealing with a blowout type game, and that's going to affect the prop market.
So when it comes to Pickett, it's a blowout's one piece of the equation that you can theoretically lose. That being said, I didn't think he was going to throw a pass. You put Pickett in there, it was third and 6 was the pass attempt. And it's all right, you can have the QB drop out and he'll roll out to the right and fall on the ground. But no, he chucked it. So a frustrating result in that regard. But in terms of blowouts, they can and will and do happen. It's not like every game. We've seen lots of thrilling, down-to-the-wire competitive Super Bowls, including each of the previous 2 years. Yesterday's game wasn't one of them. And you talked about it. if you're saying who's the MVP of the game, the MVP of the game is Vic Fangio, and or his defensive front four, because Philly didn't need to blitz and they controlled the line of scrimmage with 4 guys, and that was the game. It wasn't Philly's offense dominating, Kansas City. And again, you tell us before the game that Barkley's 25 for 57, long of 10, no touchdowns. You're going to bet more on KC, not less. But the defensive front for Philadelphia was so dominant in that ball game that, Philly's offensive stats were something of an afterthought. And of course, the game was in garbage time early. So a lot of times when you get games that are decided at halftime, you'll see box scores that don't necessarily correlate to what you actually just saw on the field, because in the second half, the one team's just trying to burn clock and the other team's, playing with, all right, we got to move. And Kansas City ended up putting up a decent amount of yards. Again, Mahomes ended up going over his, the Chiefs still full game yardage total stayed under. Total for the Super Bowl, total yardage for both teams, Super Bowl also stayed under. But Kansas City's, when you look at the box score and Kansas City's numbers, it doesn't fade out with the play out of the game. This game was a complete domination. It was 40-6, before those garbage time scores for Kansas City.
Chris B in the chat box here, guys. If you're watching live, feel free to fire away on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Also, like Teddy talked about, in the comments below, any questions, fire away. We'll be in there chiming in the comments. Chris B saying teams with number 1 scoring defense and total defense to win the Super Bowl since 2000. It was this Eagles team, the 2013 Seahawks, and the 2002 Tampa Bay Bucks. And I'll tell you this, Teddy, the correlation with the blowouts.
All blowouts.
This is something to pay attention to, because those are the teams that blew out, like I was just talking about, that blew out their opponents. So that's something I'm going to put in my notes here. Look to be betting on the number 1 total defense. Not that you wouldn't, but that's how the blowouts have happened anyway in the Super Bowl.
Sure. And so what's it take for a blowout in any game? Usually it takes mistakes and or domination at the line of scrimmage. And we saw both of those yesterday. Philly dominated the line of scrimmage and KC made mistakes, turned the ball over. And, the result, 40-22.
Teddy, what about the aesthetics of the Super Bowl? Before we get into this upcoming year, where'd you watch the Super Bowl? What'd you think of the production, the halftime show, Tom Brady calling it? I know you had something to say. I'll tell you that he wears too much makeup. I thought he did a great job, but just looking at him, it's kind of awkward. It's like, dude, you're a good-looking guy anyway. Why are you caking your face with all this stuff? But I don't know. That's just some of it that I took away, man. How did you feel about the overall production of it?
The lights are bright on the set, man. You got to kick that makeup. There are guys that do it. They're, I don't, but I'm sure if I was, working in Hollywood, like these guys are, they probably, I've had to put on the makeup at times for productions as well. Halftime show. I didn't watch the halftime show. I never watched the halftime show, dude. I go out and have a cigarette. Yeah.
I thought you stopped smoking.
Yeah, I did. That was then. This is now. Quitting smoking is easy, dude. I've done it dozens of times. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I watched a little bit. I don't know what's his first name? Is it Kendrick or is it Lamar Kendrick or Kendrick Lamar? I don't even know.
I believe
I didn't know any of his songs.
Lamar.
Yeah, my wife was telling me, yeah, you know this song. And I listened to it. I'm like, I don't know this song. So no, I didn't watch any of that. Tom Brady was less odious yesterday than he was in the previous game, but I wouldn't call him one of my favorite color commentators. I'll leave it at that. What color was that? I didn't see what color the Gatorade was, by the way. I realized I didn't pay attention to that. I didn't have anything on it. I don't know what color the Gatorade was. So if anyone knows, drop in the comment below. I'm jaded, Drew. I've seen a million, you remember all these Super Bowls. You've watched all these Super Bowls. The production to me makes I could no difference. I don't know.
Okay. No, just wanted.
Everyone that was in New Orleans said they liked New Orleans this time around, and the lights didn't go out for a half hour, so that was a good thing.
Yeah, I remember that. That was the last time the Super Bowl was in New Orleans, and the Big Easy is called the Big Easy for a reason. It is a fun town for sure. But well, Teddy, that's 25 minutes of recap. We got to get into looking ahead here towards next year, guys. I believe we're going to do a NFL opening line report probably the Monday before the NFL draft. But other than that, we are heading into the off season. Teddy, man, any thoughts on betting the NFL coming into the off season? You know, I know it's tough to kind of, I guess, hold up your money for this long on a future bet, but I guess going over the future board, what's kind of catching your eye?
Sure. Let's. I'm just going to run through the future board. I got MGM numbers here. The other books have comparable numbers. If you're going to bet, be sure to shop around. There are some variants, but I got MGM numbers in front of me, so I'll talk about it. There's 5 quote unquote favorites for next year. Philadelphia, it's plus 650. I've seen 7-1 elsewhere. 7-1 Baltimore. 7.5-1 Buffalo, Kansas City. 8.5-1 Detroit. Those are the 5 favorites. San Francisco not that far behind, 13-1. Then you've got the middle tier teams. 20-1 Washington, Green Bay, Cincinnati, the Chargers, the Rams at 22-1. Houston at 25-1. Minnesota and Denver at 30-1. Then you start looking at some of the longer shots. Chicago and Tampa at 40-1. Miami at 50-1. Atlanta, Seattle, 60-1. Arizona, Dallas, 66-1. Pittsburgh's at 80-1 along with the Jets. 100-1. Indy, Jacksonville, 125-1. New England and Carolina, 150-1. Cleveland, New Orleans, and Las Vegas, 200-1. NYG and Tennessee. So let's start at the bottom. I ain't betting the Giants. I ain't betting the Titans. I'm not betting the Browns. I'm not betting the Saints. I'm not betting the Raiders or the Patriots or the Panthers. So the bottom 7 teams, anything that's more than 100-1, no thank you. When you're talking about the top teams, Philly, Baltimore, Buffalo, KC, Detroit, those numbers likely to be there 3 months from now. No urgency necessarily, unless one of those teams makes a huge splash in free agency. I don't know any of them have the money to make a big splash in free agency. So those numbers are going to be there. So your sweet spot, if you want to get down now, is the stuff in the middle. 20-1 Washington, certainly. Green Bay, certainly. Cincinnati, certainly. Those are 3 teams you expect to be live, 3 teams you expect to be postseason next year. 22-1 for the Chargers and the Rams. Those 2 make sense. 25-1 for Houston. That's one that makes sense to me to potentially look at right now. 40-1 Tampa, 50-1 Miami, 60-1 Atlanta as a live shot, 80-1 Pittsburgh, 100-1 Jacksonville. I mean, again, just bang, off the top of my head. Those are some that stand out to me as being a little bit high. All that being said, I will not make a bet on the 2025 NFL season or on Super Bowl 60 next year until we have not just the opponents that the teams are playing, but the actual schedule. The schedule release is huge. Are you getting the extra rest? Are you getting the teams off of buys? Are you getting, there's how many sandwich spots do you have? How many good spots do you have? How many bad spots do you have? Are your divisional games lined up with one another? Are they bang, bang, bang in between? There's a lot of nuances to the schedule that help me handicap a lot. So when it comes to which teams I think are going to have good years or bad years, I wait until that schedule gets released. So we don't just have the opponents. We have when they're facing those opponents. And to me, that matters a ton. Now, when it comes to the timing of some of this stuff, the NFL markets, there'll be a little flurry today and then nothing. You won't see anything till the draft. The week of the draft, the NFL markets move a little bit and then it's quiet again. Season wins start to come on. Season wins may come out before draft. Again, I'm not going to do anything with them until we have schedule release. But once you have schedule release, free agency, and draft, now we're talking the beginning of May, mid-May, that's when you start to see, again, a little bit of movement on these numbers. And they sit for a while after the draft, after free agency, and they'll sit, and then they start to, late July, early August, as training camps open, you start to see the numbers move once again. But your inflection points near the draft, near the schedule release. That's the 2 that stand out for when these numbers actually start to move.
Teddy, love what you said there on the futures market, particularly the teams at the top. I really would kind of give the advice, don't, the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Ravens, those numbers, Teddy just touched on it. They're not going to get you're not going to get that much better of a number now. And I mean, with interest rates, the whole bit, just hold on to your money, wait until closer to the NFL season start. You want to be looking more towards the middle of the pack and down. Teddy, you made some good points on the teams down. You might just be ripping up your ticket anyway. What I like to do, guys, is there's two teams that jump out at me, and it sounded like you had positive responses to this: the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Atlanta Falcons. And part of the handicap is, Teddy, the division they play in. I don't want to be betting
Yep.
futures on teams that have a deep division, so like the AFC North, something like that. I want to be betting on teams that the market is down on, and yet maybe there's only like one good team in the division. And if that team drops down, somebody's got to win the division. Remember, there's only 4 teams in these NFL divisions. And if you can get one of those long shots that makes the playoff, I kind of like that profile. And those are 2 teams that are at the top of my head for me, just because of the division they play in. I feel like the quarterback position could be there with both of them. So the Falcons and the Jaguars are 2 teams that I have circled. Maybe could be a shot at a futures bet.
Sure. I mean, look, the NFC South is not likely to be a whole lot better next year than it was this past year. I think it's a 2-team race, Tampa and Atlanta. In theory, I mean, let's obviously see what happens. But in my mind, Carolina's still a long way back, and New Orleans, their salary cap hell is only just beginning. It's going to be a couple years, I think, before the Saints are competitive again. So when you have a 2-team race for a division, it's the same story when you talk about the NFC South with Tampa and Atlanta. Or did I just talk about that? The AFC South with it's Houston in the AFC South, and then Tennessee's not going anywhere. And Indy, lots of question mark, lots of holes. The Jags, in my mind, it's a 2-team race, and Jacksonville was pretty awful this past year, but that means that gives them an easier schedule next time around. So I'm with you on that being, it's not a scenario where you've got 3 or 4 teams live in a division, NFC North, AFC North. And if your team makes the postseason, you're already in position to hedge. That said, from a strength of schedule standpoint, the problem with teams like Tampa or Atlanta or Jacksonville is that when they do make the playoffs, they're likely to be underdogs, in part because of the weak strength of schedule that they faced and the weakness of their division.
Teddy, I'm seeing some futures markets with like starting QB. Will Russell Wilson be a starting QB? Justin Fields, Sam Darnold, like some of the bigger names. Aaron Rodgers is up there at plus 900. Will he start at QB week 1 of next season? Not sure if you like any of those markets. Also, I guess, well, first off, do you like any of those kind of niche markets of like Aaron Rodgers being a starting quarterback? Any of those?
This is important to note, and I talked about it a little bit on WagerTalk today, this morning. As a handicapper, you go out into the straight world, and you're like, "Oh, I'm a sports bettor," and I get asked 2 questions all the time. The first question is, who's going to win whatever sport we're talking? Who's going to win the championship? Who's going to win the Super Bowl or the NBA title or whatever sport we're talking about? Who's going to win the title? And that's a reasonable question to ask me, and I'll have some opinions. The other question that I always get asked by the recreational bettors or the straight people of the world is, where is so-and-so player going to end up? Where's LeBron going to end up? Where's Aaron Rodgers going to, whatever superstar player is the free agent, where's that guy going to end up? When it comes to who's going to win the Super Bowl, I can give you an opinion. Or who's going to win the NBA championship or whatever. When it comes to where a player is going to end up, I don't know. You don't know. The beat writers don't know. The GMs don't know. The player doesn't know. Nobody knows. It's one of those things. When it works out, it works out. And a lot of times the stuff you find out, what happens is not anything that was rumored about beforehand. So I don't try to handicap whether Aaron Rodgers is going to play another NFL game or not. I don't care. When he's on a team, if he's on a team, we'll start handicapping that team. But the player props for which player, which quarterback ends up here, whichever. I don't know. You don't know. And it's not, the market's not big enough to spend a whole lot of time trying to read the tea leaves, especially in an era, much like the NFL draft, everyone's trying to send smoke signals the wrong way. So the stuff you're reading may be targeted misinformation or disinformation trying to point you in the wrong direction. So I don't do any of that with where's this player going to go. I don't care where he goes. Tell me where he is, and we'll start the handicap from there.
And Teddy, I know we're going to do or likely to do a show before the NFL draft, but what the NFL kind of takes center stage the month of April. They give March to college basketball, and then they're right back in it. That's how the NFL kind of works. I'm seeing Cam Ward at the top, -110. Travis Hunter +375, Carter +195, Shedeur Sanders +500, Jackson Dart +4,000. Are you interested at all in the NFL draft right now, or you're going to wait until closer to the NFL draft? What's your overall feeling on betting the draft?
I mean, I don't bet a lot on the draft because by the time I get the information, the numbers are gone. All right. And you'll see, you want to talk about line moves. A guy will be a 20-1 dog, and then the next day he'll be -300. I mean, the line, when the info comes, it comes fast. And if you're not sitting in front of your screen, you missed it. So I don't bet a lot on the end. And when we do our spring show around the NFL draft, I'm not going to be sitting here going, oh, yeah, this is the guy to draft. That's the guy to draft. Because all that stuff, again, the markets are very limited for those contests. So the numbers move like crazy. It's not like a Super Bowl. You can bet $1 million. They're not going to freaking change the number. It's a Super Bowl. This is limited markets where the books absolutely react to every dollar they're getting from the sharp guys that are betting. So it's difficult to get down on the NFL draft at anything close to the numbers that you'll see the talking heads on screens talking about where they're getting. That being said, we'll talk about it. But we haven't seen we haven't seen all the stuff that determines who's going to go number one in the draft. Combine stuff, the private sessions, the reports off the sessions, the throwing sessions. So I don't know if it's going to be Cam Ward or not. I think Cam Ward's pretty good. Do I think Cam Ward is going to be the best pro ever? Do I think he's as good as some of the other number ones that we've seen coming out of college of late at the QB position? Yeah. I mean, I like his character a lot. We'll see.
Yeah, I like his character too. I have questions though about the consistency. Watching some Canes games, he wasn't that consistent of a passer down the field. He missed a lot. Well, I don't know about a lot, but he would miss passes. If you're looking for something, I kind of like Jackson Dart. Out of Ole Miss, 40-1. I feel like that could be a look as well. And maybe even Travis Hunter +375, but you're not getting too much of a kickback. And, you're asking for a quarterback not to go first, which sometimes can be tricky. But looking at the NFL draft, guys, we'll circle back around in the offseason on that. But Teddy, what else? Do we need to hit anything else on the show?
Does anyone have, were there any questions in the chat? I didn't see. I don't know if there's anything going today, so we can do that. While you look, let me promo for just a minute, guys. There's actually three things I want to promo. First, we got 30-day all access, less than $8 a day, no promo code needed. You can use it for me. You can use it for Drew. You can use it for any of the cappers at WagerTalk.com. Less than $60 a week, less than $8 a day. And of course, that includes all top-rated 5% of plays, usually sold individually for $35 each. So 30-day all access. Just visit my page, wt.buzz/TC, or any of the pages at WagerTalk.com. Then, second promo, and this is I'm going to use for NBA. Sport 50 at checkout is going to get you $30 off NBA 30-day all access. The NBA has been very good over the years, plus 194 units of profit since 2022. And this year has taken me a while to get going. But we're in a little bit of form right now. 83% run over the last 5 days, 67% run here in February. Use promo code SPORT50 at checkout. Take $50 off a 30-day NBA All Access Pass. And over the All-Star break, those days are comped. You don't have to pay for days where there's no games. So you'll get extra days for the All-Star break. SPORT50 at checkout gets you $50 off of that. And last but not least, this is a new one that I want to talk about. Odds Logic. WagerTalk is a new odds service. Oddslogic.com. Go to oddslogic.com /Teddy and get a free trial right now and take a look at what an odds service can do when it comes to injuries, when it comes to line moves, all that kind of stuff. Again, oddslogic.com/Teddy. 7-day free trial right now. Check it out. There you go. Now, did you find what you were looking for, Drew?
Yeah, no, good stuff, TC. Also, 5% max limit up tonight. College basketball, guys. Drew Martin, WagerTalk.com. Heck of a weekend. 100% since Friday. So seeing it well. If you want to play for the Big Monday card, check it out. WagerTalk.com. 5% max limit. Teddy, we got a bunch of comments here. Guys saying, thanks for the show. We also got Have Cash and Chris B helping us out. It was lime green Gatorade, yellow green lime. That Cash is, that's my
what was
favorite
the number on
Gatorade.
the green? The lemon lime, the little yellowy one is the one I like too. Yeah. That's the best one.
Yeah, it's kind of like the main one, I guess I would say. Also on that, guys, for future Super Bowls, I always like a defensive player to do the Gatorade, because usually the offense is out there kneeling it down. So one of the better defense, I always like that kind of aspect. I didn't bet it this year, but anyway, for future Super Bowls. But yeah, Teddy, that's most of the comments here, the recap for the Super Bowl. So anything else you want to throw out there before we shut this down?
I want to thank you guys, really. I mean, there's so many of you come week after week. Lots of guys only come once in a while. We appreciate it. I appreciate it. Drew and I don't do this for our health. We do it because we like to talk, and this show's gained some traction. So really appreciate you guys, genuinely. And I try to say that in the comments and respond to your comments every week. Thanks for watching. And again, we'll do at least a show or two over the summer, and then we'll be back full-time come August. Once preseason rolls around. But we appreciate you, and thanks for paying attention to Wager Talk TV. Likes, comments, follows, you guys know the drill. And check out the page, wt.buzz/TC at wagertalk.com, and take advantage of Drew's big play in college hoops tonight as well, wt.buzz/DM for Drew Martin's page.
There we go, guys. Shout out to Dan Alexander, Joe Ranieri behind the scenes helping the show grow. For Teddy Covers, I'm Drew Martin. Thanks for tuning in. Comment below, smash that like button. We'll be back for the NFL draft. Come back and join us. Until then, cash those tickets.